Recently, I felt like I was in this phase where I was like between chapters. I guess that's the best way to explain it. But when you feel like you just don't know what's next, where you're going, what's the next goal, what's the next, you know, focal point. Overthinking and over questioning, like if everything is like right for you or if you're making the wrong decisions, etc. I'm going to share with you a couple of things in terms of how I deal with this, because it wasn't the first time I've been here and it probably won't be the last. There's a book called The Way of the Superior Man. It's one of the only books I found that really touches on this concept, but it talked about being open and patient and just waiting. And it's not really the advice that you want to hear, but that really is the first one. Is like, there's a bit more to it. It's being open and still trying to consume new information and have new inputs, reading books, listening to podcasts. Being open is also like creating space. There's this thing, whether you call it God, whether you call it the source, whether you call it the universe, when you just have undeniable downloads, like instructions that come to you, you need to create space so that like your inner voice, and if you've read, books like Reality Transurfing, they talk about this, but you need to create space so that you can actually hear that. And one of the ways that you need to do that is not by necessarily adding more. And so I say this whole thing of like consume new information sparingly. With that, what you'll be able to do is create space. And so what I mean is like less time with the phone, less time, eating your portion of reels for breakfast, more time meditating, more time journaling. These things really, really help for you to reconnect with what feels right. I would say the next thing is routine, right? Have a set routine. I'm going to share a really powerful analogy with you that's going to give you a perfect visual on what all of this actually is doing and looks like for you. Sometimes we go through a period of life that feels like we're sailing through a storm, okay? Now, oftentimes what happens, just gonna make sure I don't get run over here while I'm talking to you guys. Oftentimes what happens when we enter this period of our life that it's kind of like a storm, we're like, how do we turn the boat the right way? How do we make the right decision so that we can get out of this storm? When that's not really the right way to think about it. We don't really have control over that. We may not know what the right direction is. But what you want to do is yourself as the vessel that is sailing through the storm. That's what you want to reinforce to be able to handle the storm. And so what do I mean by this? So like, imagine that you're sailing through a storm and you're going through it. Switch hands here. But imagine that you are sailing through it in a tiny raft, like in a tiny little, like you're sitting on a log. You're just getting blown whichever way you want to go. You have like no real control over, whichever way the wind takes you. If a massive wave comes, you're like, holy shit, this is about to sink me. Like you're on this tiny little raft going through the storm. The main goal, the main objective with everything that I'm talking about and what I've done that's really helped me is forget about trying to get out of the storm, but you want to rebuild and reinforce the vessel to take it from like a little wooden raft to like a military boat or like a cargo ship, right? Because it's not about trying to make the right calls and rush out of the storm, but it's about how can you still live in a way that is productive, true to you while you go through the storm. And that's really sometimes all it is just like not tapping out or not allowing your heightened emotional state to cause you to make any sort of like rash decisions, because you're feeling so emotionally overwhelmed. You think your body sort of craves certainty, craves definitiveness. So what you do then is you're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna make some crazy call. I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna like move cities. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And sometimes it might be the case. Sometimes it might be the solution. I can say oftentimes from my life, when I've made those calls, like really big calls, like when I moved to Colombia, it didn't necessarily come from a place of panic. It came from a place of peace and just like, this felt right. So I don't know if I think those are the answer. I think that's your body just craving some sort of, quick solution. And the reality is they're not, there really isn't one. And so the best thing that you can do is reconnect to a strong daily routine that like battened down the hatches and helps you feel a lot more, just confident about how things are going. And so what that actually looks like is go to bed at the same time every day, wake up at the same time every day. Don't use your phone for like the first hour before bed. So right now, like I just woke up, I'm going on my morning walk. And what I'm doing is like, I don't have my phone on me. I'm gonna take my camera, film some content, and I won't pick up my phone until like an hour and a half later, just so I'm not like straight into the notifications, dopamine, whatever. This allows me to self-regulate a little better. But yeah, sleep same time, wake up same time, no phone, ideally before bed or as soon as you wake up for a little bit of time. Reading is really good as well to help you with that. Hit the gym every day, try and eat healthy, right? Eat healthy foods, not just because lose weight or whatever. They genuinely help you because they help you with, I guess, having less of the dopamine highs and lows as well. When you eat a lot of protein and healthy fats, especially, I think Dr. Jordan Peterson said this, that really helps like anchor you mentally for the day. And so I highly recommend like good, healthy, protein heavy meals. And then beyond that, journaling, giving yourself some space. Prayer as well is something that I definitely recommend helps. Praying for guidance, praying for support, praying for the path to be shown to you. And then with that, you kind of realize you can be okay not being okay. You realize that I can still live in a way that is not reckless, that is still stable, even whilst I can fully admit I may not have everything figured out. I may not know what the answer is just yet. That's okay. That is the solution. That's the strength, right? A lot of the Stoics would talk about there is wisdom in action in times like this. And I truly think that is the case. Being rash, jumping around, trying to make rash decisions, it's your body craving something, but the real strength is like, can you hold it back? Can you hold back from doing that and doing anything crazy and just kind of like wait out the storm? Because that's really the only way to get through it. You can't like snap your fingers and teleport out of it. You just got to be strong enough to wait it out, right? And so with that being said, I really believe that going back to basics, reinforcing your own vessel, your own instrument through doing the simple things that help give us clarity and peace of mind is what's going to allow you to eventually allow the answer to find you. You're not going to find it. Don't fall into the trap of like trying to think your way out of these situations. That's a really big one. Don't try and think your way to a solution. Don't try and think your way to, a strategy. In saying that, when you try and just sit there and think and ruminate and go over and over and over and like, oh my God, I need to get out of this. What do? I feel horrible. You need to chill, take a deep breath. And then the third and final thing, and I had a real tendency to do this, and it's something that might sneak up on you, is if you're thinking in binaries, that is something that also really can lead to a lot of suffering. But if you're thinking in binaries in the sense of like, okay, I can either do this or I can do that. Or I have, again, I'm gonna try not to get run over here. That'd be hilarious. When you think in binaries, like I have the option to do this or I have the option to do that, I can make the decision to, if I do this, then that will happen, or I can do this and that will happen. I realized that I had a real tendency to think in extremes, right? So it's like, okay, I stay in Colombia or I go travel somewhere else, and I go traveling for 3 months and I pack my bag and I go start fresh and I go start somewhere new. It doesn't necessarily need to be the case, right? If I just feel like I need a little bit of a holiday, well then, I could find an in-between where it's like, obviously there's great things about having a base. You've already got an apartment, you've already got familiarity with the place, you've got people here. Don't throw all that away. But at the same time, staying here doesn't mean that you need to be 100% fully trapped and never travel. So why not just plan like a 4-week holiday instead of 3 months? Go get that freedom, get that sensation, but then also come back to the stability, to the optimized life that you've built, and don't erase it completely. There is usually always a way to change or questions, like is it this or this, and turn them into and questions, like how can I have this and this. So that's the last and final thing that I would encourage you to explore. Thank you for joining me on this morning walk. I hope some of these thoughts have been helpful, and that if you're going through a tough time, pray that you get through it soon enough. I'm sure you will, especially if you're watching things like this. It shows that you're actively trying to search for help and for information, and I am cheering for you from afar. Just do the basics, take a deep breath, reconnect with your beliefs and with God, and trust that it does get better. Wish you the best. Keep pushing.